Stop everything. Because what I'm about to tell you is not—
Pause right there. Katt Williams. The same guy who roasted Hollywood on stage for years. Now being accused of murder for hire. That's not just irony. That's Shakespearean tragedy in real life.
not just another headline. It's a blood-soaked scandal that is tearing the comedy world apart. Reggie Carroll is dead. A man who made millions laugh is now gone in the most brutal, cold-blooded way imaginable. And the name being whispered as the mastermind is none other than comedian Katt Williams. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't a joke. This isn't a skit. This is a murder-for-hire confession that has turned the entire industry upside down. According to investigators, Katt Williams didn't just feud with Reggie. He allegedly paid a hitman, his own trusted security guard, to pull the trigger and silence Reggie forever. And why? Because Reggie Carroll had a secret. A deadly secret. He was about to expose something so dangerous, so explosive, it could have destroyed careers, exposed Hollywood corruption, and brought down the so-called comedy mafia. We're talking about a hidden U.S.
Notice where this happened. Katt's own clothing brand headquarters. That's not just bad optics. Legally it ties him directly to the crime scene. Prosecutors love this kind of connection. It screams motive and opportunity.
USB drive filled with contracts, shady money deals, and shocking celebrity connections that Reggie claimed would burn the industry to ashes. But before he could go public, before he could reveal the truth, he was gunned down inside a building directly tied to Katt's own clothing brand. And now the alleged hitman has confessed. Katt paid me to do it. The internet is in flames. Fans are crying, screaming for justice. Hashtags like #JusticeForReggie and #ComedyMafia are exploding across social media. This isn't just tragedy. This is betrayal. This is the darkest scandal comedy has ever seen. And if the evidence is real, Katt Williams might never see the outside of a prison cell again. The comedy world has just been turned into a crime scene. And at the center of it all is the name nobody ever thought they would hear, Katt Williams. Reggie Carroll's death isn't just a loss, it's an execution. The kind of execution that feels less like random violence and more like a carefully calculated message. Let's rewind. Reggie wasn't just another comedian. He was a 52-year-old veteran of the stage, a man who carried decades of laughter in his voice, a man loved by fans for being raw, fearless, and unfiltered. But in the final weeks of his life, something inside him changed. He started pulling away from people, becoming distant, restless, even paranoid.
Quick question for you guys. If you had a USB drive that could take down an empire, would you go public? Or would you hide it, knowing your life was on the line? Drop your answers in the comments, because Reggie clearly chose danger over silence.
Fans recall him pacing backstage, whispering about a truth he couldn't keep inside any longer. One friend claims Reggie told him directly, "I've got proof. Proof that will bring the whole empire down." At first, everyone assumed he was talking about a new comedy special, maybe a career-defining set that would expose the darker side of fame. But the truth was darker, much darker. Sources say Reggie had compiled a USB drive, a digital time bomb. On it, he stored contracts, payment records, and documents that allegedly revealed corruption at the heart of Katt Williams' empire. Fake business deals, ghost employees, and untraceable money streams that pointed not just to Katt, but to other powerful names in comedy and Hollywood. Reggie was ready to go public. He had even teased on social media that he was about to burn the stage down with the truth. And then, he was silenced. August 20th, South Haven, Mississippi. Inside the very headquarters of Katt Williams' clothing brand, Onyxl LLC, gunshots echoed through the building. Employees ran. Panic erupted. By the time police arrived, Reggie Carroll was gone, shot dead inside an office tied directly to Katt's business. The scene was disturbing. Blood spattered across the floor, shattered glass, and one strange discovery, a burned hard drive. Someone had clearly tried to destroy evidence in a hurry. Now ask yourself, what kind of evidence gets destroyed in the very minutes after a man is executed? Investigators quickly shifted focus to the people closest to Katt. And that's when they found Katt Williams, a man not only tied to Katt's tour, but also serving as part of his personal security team. At first, Katt refused to say a word. Silent. Stone-faced. But days later, under mounting pressure, he broke. And what came out of his mouth sent shockwaves across the nation. Katt confessed that he had been paid to take out Reggie Carroll. Paid by Katt Williams himself. Yes, according to the confession, this wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't random. It was a hit job, an orchestrated elimination. But that wasn't even the most terrifying part. Katt handed investigators digital receipts, bank transfers, encrypted messages, and most damning of all, a voice recording. In it, a man believed to be Katt Williams can allegedly be heard saying, "Shut Reggie down. If he talks, everything we've built goes up in flames." Let that sink in. A top comedian, a household name, supposedly instructing his own guard to silence a fellow performer forever. And the motive? Clear as day. Reggie was about to expose a world of fraud and corruption that extended far beyond just one comedian's ego. According to whispers, the USB contained details.
And here's where it gets chilling: Hollywood silence. In court cases like this, silence isn't neutral. It's strategic. It makes you wonder, were they afraid of the truth? Or afraid of being exposed themselves?
About hidden payouts, shell companies, and even an unnamed Hollywood producer whose connections could ruin more than one career. Reggie wasn't just holding secrets. He was holding dynamite. The internet exploded. Within hours of the confession leaking, hashtags like #JusticeForReggie and #ComedyMafia were trending across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Fans couldn't believe it. How could the same man who made them laugh also be linked to something this dark? But the silence from Hollywood was deafening. Big names like Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, and Steve Harvey said nothing. No tribute. No outrage. Just silence. And silence in moments like this doesn't feel like respect. It feels like fear. It feels like people protecting their own because they know the dominoes could fall on them too. Meanwhile, protests broke out in Mississippi and Atlanta. Crowds gathered outside comedy clubs with banners reading, "Reggie deserves justice" and "Comedy Mafia must fall." The public wasn't just mourning, they were demanding answers. Then came another twist. Reggie's family stepped forward. Through tears, his sister revealed something that turned this tragedy into an even bigger bombshell. Reggie made copies. He didn't trust anyone. If they think the truth is gone with him, they're wrong. "We have another USB." The crowd erupted. Journalists scrambled. If that's true, if Reggie's family really does hold another drive with all the evidence, then this isn't just a murder investigation. This is a countdown to one of the biggest scandals entertainment has ever faced. And the FBI? They've now joined the case. No longer just a state matter. This has crossed into federal territory. Because the documents on that drive may not just show murder for hire, they could expose racketeering, money laundering, and a criminal network hidden behind comedy tours. Think about that. The comedy you paid to see, the tours you laughed at, the shows you streamed, could have secretly been funding an empire of fraud, deception, and now murder. For fans, the pain is unbearable. They've lost a man who made them laugh. They've gained a nightmare where every punchline is stained with blood. And for Katt Williams? His career, his freedom, his very life as he knows it, hangs by a thread. Because if that recording is authenticated, if those bank transfers are proven real, if that USB makes it to the public, then it's over. No stage, no spotlight, no redemption. Just prison bars and the permanent stain of betrayal. This isn't just a tragedy. This is the unraveling of an entire empire built on secrets. And Reggie Carroll's death may only be the beginning. The confession alone could have ended Katt Williams' career. But what came next turned this case into a full-blown nightmare for the entire comedy industry. Because the story didn't stop with a hitman's words. It didn't stop with whispers about money transfers or encrypted chats. No, this story began to unravel into something far darker, far more dangerous, something that now has the FBI circling like sharks. Within 48 hours of the confession, federal agents raided multiple locations tied to Katt's business empire. His touring company, his recording studios, even properties linked to his Onyx Owl clothing brand. What they discovered sent chills through investigators. Shredded contracts, destroyed laptops, and safe deposit records pointing to offshore accounts. And then came the smoking gun, a second USB drive. Recovered from a storage locker in Atlanta, it matched the description Reggie's family had warned about. Except this wasn't just backup data. This was the nuclear bomb. Inside were files naming not just Katt Williams, but 3 other high-profile comedians who allegedly funneled millions through fake shell companies, hiding money, avoiding taxes, and using tours as a front for what looks like full-blown racketeering. Reggie wasn't bluffing. He had uncovered the comedy mafia.
Now this audio leak is a game changer. Even if it's not admissible in court, public opinion doesn't need courtroom standards. Once people believe they've heard Katt plotting murder, his career is basically over. Trial or no trial.
And suddenly, his death didn't look like just one man's paranoia. It looked like an execution ordered to protect a billion-dollar empire. The internet exploded again. Memes, hashtags, conspiracy threads, people began piecing together tour dates, shady deals, even jokes Katt had once made on stage that now sounded more like confessions than comedy. But while fans screamed, the silence from Hollywood grew even more sinister. Big names refused to comment, but insiders began leaking whispers. Everyone knew Reggie had dirt. Everyone knew he wasn't safe. Still, not a single A-list comedian has stepped forward. No tributes, no outrage. And in that silence, the public began to see guilt. They began to believe that this wasn't just Katt, this was bigger. This was systemic. And then came the leak that broke the internet. A journalist with insider contacts published a grainy audio clip, the alleged voice of Katt Williams, furious, frantic, and chillingly direct. If he drops that file, I lose everything. Handle it before the world burns. The clip spread like wildfire. TikTok edits, Instagram reels, YouTube breakdowns, the words echoed across every platform. Was it authentic? Experts debated. Some called it doctored, others said the cadence matched Katt's voice perfectly. But one thing was clear, public trust shattered. Outside comedy clubs, protests grew louder. Thousands gathered with candles, chanting justice for Reggie as police tried to hold back crowds. People cried, people screamed, people demanded arrests. The once beloved Katt Williams was no longer a hero. He was being painted as the face of betrayal. And yet, through all of this chaos, one group remained eerily calm. Reggie Carroll's family. At a tearful press conference, his niece stepped to the microphone holding a small flash drive between her fingers. Her voice cracked, but her words cut like glass. They thought killing him would kill the truth. But he gave us everything. And if justice doesn't come, we will show the world what's inside. The crowd erupted. The image of a grieving family holding what could be the most dangerous USB in comedy history went viral overnight. It became a symbol, a threat, a promise. And that's when the FBI went public. For the first time, agents confirmed they were investigating not just a homicide, but possible organized crime linked to the comedy industry. They didn't say names, but everyone knew who they were pointing to. The fallout was immediate. Ticket sales for Katt's shows plummeted. Venues pulled out. Sponsors dropped him. Even Netflix quietly removed his upcoming special from their platform. Katt Williams, the man who once sold out arenas, was suddenly radioactive. But even worse for him, cracks began forming inside his own circle. Associates turned on him. Former employees came forward claiming they were paid in cash, told never to keep records, and threatened if they asked questions. One even claimed Katt once bragged, "I run this like the mob. Nobody crosses me." Whether true or not, the narrative stuck. And while Katt stayed silent, refusing interviews, refusing to release a statement, his absence only deepened the perception of guilt. But then came a twist nobody saw coming. A second man, another former member of Katt's security team, walked into a police station and offered his testimony. According to him, Reggie's murder wasn't just about the USB. It was about betrayal. He claimed Katt felt Reggie was too close to rivals, too dangerous, too unpredictable. The USB, he said, was just one piece. The real reason was fear. Fear that Reggie would destroy him both personally and professionally. And that testimony pushed the public over the edge. Because suddenly, this wasn't just murder for hire. This was personal. This was betrayal by someone Reggie once called a brother. Think about that. A man who toured with you, laughed with you, trusted you, cut down because his truth was too heavy to bear. And as the walls close in, Katt Williams' empire continues to crumble. Reports say the FBI has frozen some of his accounts, seized properties, and is quietly building a case that could charge him not just with conspiracy to commit murder, but also with racketeering and money laundering. If convicted, we're not talking about years. We're talking about life. And for fans, the tragedy grows heavier every day. They've lost not only Reggie, but also the illusion of comedy itself. The stage that once gave them joy now feels tainted, poisoned, corrupted. Mothers hold their children at protests, chanting Reggie's name. Fans who once wore Katt's merch now burn it in the streets. And in every corner of social media, the same question echoes. If Katt Williams could do this, what else has been hidden from us? This isn't just the fall of one comedian. This is the exposure of an entire underground built on money, lies, and fear. And with every new leak, every new testimony, the truth cuts deeper. Reggie Carroll's death was supposed to silence him. Instead, it made him louder than ever. And now, the world is listening. The world thought it had already seen the darkest chapter of this scandal. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared anyone for the courtroom. From the moment Katt Williams stepped into that courthouse, the atmosphere was electric with rage, grief, and anticipation. Protesters lined the steps outside, holding posters with Reggie Carroll's face. Chants of "Justice for Reggie" shook the air. Inside, reporters filled every seat, cameras ready to capture the collapse of a comedy empire. And collapse it was. Because the prosecution came loaded with evidence that no one expected to see laid bare in public. Bank records with Katt's signature. Encrypted chat logs decrypted by FBI techs. Surveillance footage from the very building where Reggie was killed, showing Katt arriving hours before and his hitman leaving minutes after the gunshots. Gasps filled the courtroom. People whispered, cried, some even walked out in shock. The evidence wasn't circumstantial anymore. It was direct, brutal, and undeniable. But the real bombshell came when the hitman himself, Tornell Morris Williams, was brought to the stand. His face pale, his voice trembling, but his words slicing like knives. He didn't just admit the murder. He detailed it. He described how Katt handed him an envelope full of cash. How he was told to make it clean, make it final. How he returned afterward and saw Katt sitting in his office, drinking, saying only 4 words. Reggie won't bother us. The courtroom froze. Reggie's mother let out a cry so painful, so raw, the judge had to pause the trial. Even hardened journalists broke down, unable to process the sheer cruelty behind those words. But it didn't stop there. The USB, the files, the evidence of corruption. Prosecutors revealed glimpses of the documents Reggie had protected. Shell companies, fake contracts, money routed through offshore banks, and then names. Names of celebrities, producers, and promoters tied into what the FBI described as a web of organized criminal behavior under the guise of comedy tours. The audience gasped louder than ever. This wasn't just Katt Williams on trial. This was a system on fire. And yet, Katt sat there stone-faced. No tears. No remorse. No apology. Just a cold, blank stare, as though the walls around him weren't collapsing, as though he hadn't lost everything. But when the defense finally spoke, things spiraled into chaos. Because instead of denying, instead of protecting his image, Katt lashed out. He screamed across the courtroom, pointing at Reggie's grieving family, yelling, "He betrayed me. He was going to ruin all of us. You think he was innocent? He was part of it too." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Gasps, shouts, even the judge slamming the gavel demanding silence. But it was too late. That one outburst destroyed any chance Katt had left. Because in that moment, the world saw not a victim, not a misunderstood artist, but a man consumed by paranoia, rage, and guilt.
And that's it. A guilty verdict not only for Katt but potentially for the entire comedy mafia. But here's the question nobody's asking. If this is the fall of one empire, how many others are still standing in the shadows, untouched?
And the tragedy deepened. Reggie's sister rose from her seat, tears streaming down her face, clutching a framed photo of her brother. She shouted through sobs, "You killed him because he was brave. You killed him because he told the truth." Her words echoed in the silent courtroom. Every eye was on her. Every camera captured it. That clip went viral within minutes, played millions of times across social media. The image of a broken family demanding justice became the symbol of this case. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, rumors swirled that other comedians were lawyering up, bracing for subpoenas. Whispers of plea deals, secret testimonies, sealed indictments filled the air. If Reggie's files went fully public, this wasn't just one trial. It was the beginning of a purge that could wipe out some of the biggest names in American comedy. But for fans, the heartbreak was simpler, heavier. They had lost their laughter. They had lost their safe place. The stage where jokes once felt like joy now looked like a battlefield soaked in betrayal and blood. And when the jury returned with a verdict, the world held its breath. Guilty. On all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder. Racketeering. Money laundering. Fraud. Every charge stuck. Every defense collapsed. The once untouchable Katt Williams was now a convicted felon facing life behind bars. As the verdict was read, the crowd outside the courthouse erupted, some crying in relief, others screaming in rage. Hashtags like #ComedyMafiaDestroyed and #Reggie1 trended worldwide. But inside, something even more haunting happened. For the first time in the entire trial, Katt Williams broke. His face twisted, his shoulders slumped, and he muttered under his breath, "I just wanted to stay on top." Those words echoed through the courtroom like a ghost. Not an excuse. Not an apology. Just a confession of pride, greed, and fear. Reggie Carroll's family wept, holding each other. The judge banged the gavel, declaring sentencing for a later date. But the damage was already done. The empire was gone. The illusion shattered. The comedy world forever scarred. And as Katt was led away in handcuffs, cameras flashing, the crowd chanting outside, one truth became clear. Reggie Carroll may have been silenced, but in death, he became louder than ever. Because now, the files are out. The names are circling. The FBI is hunting. And the fans, once loyal, once blind, are finally awake. This isn't just the end of a career. This is the collapse of an entire kingdom built on lies. And it all started with a USB, a secret, and a man brave enough to speak the truth. The comedy world will never laugh the same way again. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard is not just a scandal. It's not just about Katt Williams. This is the kind of nightmare that rips open the truth about an industry built on secrets, lies, and blood. Reggie Carroll's story is no longer just about a comedian who made us laugh. It's about a man who tried to expose the darkness, who risked everything to bring the truth to light, and paid the ultimate price. Think about it. A USB drive filled with names, money trails, and backroom deals. A Hitman confession that shocked the world. A courtroom that turned into a funeral for innocence. And behind it all, a man so desperate to protect his empire that he destroyed the very person who once called him a friend. But here's the tragic reality. This isn't over. The files are still out there. The FBI is still digging. And the silence from other comedians, the ones Reggie allegedly named, is deafening. So now I have to ask you, whose side are you on? Do you stand with justice? Do you stand with Reggie Carroll, the man who gave his life for the truth? Drop your thoughts below. Flood the comments. Share this video until every corner of the internet knows what they tried to bury. Because this is bigger than comedy. This is bigger than Katt Williams. This is about corruption, betrayal, and a family still screaming for justice. Don't let Reggie's voice die with him. Let's make it louder. Let's make sure the world never forgets.